In this video cast, I'm going to review the abdominal muscles, the muscles of the hip and thigh, and the muscles of the whole leg. So we're going to start with the abdominal muscles. Remember, there's actually 4 layers of muscles. We're only going to look at 2 of them. The first one is A, and this is the rectus abdominis. And the fibers go up and down like this. The second that you need to know is the external obliques. They're the most superficial. You'll notice that the angle of the fibers, they go on an angle, which is what oblique means. So you have the rectus abdominis, the external obliques. Next, we're going to look in through the anterior portion. So this is we're looking into the torso, and so these muscles are posterior as we're looking in. So your intestines and things would be here. Remember, this is the iliopsoas muscle. This is actually 2 or 3 muscles. They're called a composite muscle. This is actually the psoas major, and this is the iliacus. What you need to know is that these 2 together are the iliopsoas muscle. Now, when we look at the posterior portion, basically looking at your butt here, we have 3 things that we can see here. The first muscle we can see is the gluteus maximus, which most people are familiar with. And then up here, and this is the iliac crest, okay, so don't forget that from the bones, it's the iliac crest. This is the gluteus medius. This is the muscle, if they're going to give you a shot in your butt, this is where you want to get it, because remember, your sciatic nerve runs right beneath the gluteus maximus. The second or third structure we can see is not a muscle. It's this band that goes down the lateral portion of the leg. And one of the things I'm going to show you in the next slide is you need to know the difference between the lateral and medial side of the leg so you don't screw anything up. But this is the iliotibial tract, or the iliotibial band, also sometimes known as the IT band. You're going to need to spell that out as iliotibial when you take the test. So it's actually a tendon for a muscle. So again, let's go through this slide again. Here we have the iliopsoas muscle. This here along with this. Then we have the gluteus maximus, the gluteus medius up here by the iliac crest, and then we have the iliotibial tract or iliotibial band running down the lateral portion of the upper leg. Now we're looking at the anterior portion of the leg, and again, it's not hard to figure out front and back because the front has toes, which you can't see here, but the toes usually are a giveaway that you're looking at the anterior portion of the leg. But you don't want to screw up your medial and lateral. So here's the pubis bone right here. That's going to be medial. That iliotibial tract or band that we just talked about is going to be lateral. So take a second to get oriented correctly. The most medial muscle that we see here is called the gracilis. So this is the gracilis muscle. The next one that you need to know attaches up here at the pubis bone, and this is the adductor longus. The adductor longus. This muscle right here, which goes from lateral, crosses over, and attaches medially, is called the sartorius. Remember, that's the longest muscle that you have in your body. Then we have this group of 4 muscles where you can only see 3, but this group is the quadriceps. This is the quadriceps. This is where it's really important that you know the difference between medial and lateral. So this is the medial side. So remember, this big bulky muscle here is the vastus medialis. The muscle in the center is the rectus femoris, and below the rectus femoris, or deep to the rectus femoris, remember, is the vastus intermedius. So I can't point to that muscle on a test, but I could ask you which muscle is deep to the rectus femoris, and that would be the 4th muscle that makes up the quadricep group, and that is the vastus intermedius. And then on the lateral portion of the upper leg, we have the vastus lateralis. Again, let's go through those. Most medial, you have the gracilis, then you have the adductor longus, sartorius, goes lateral to medial. Then you have the vastus medialis, the rectus femoris. Deep to the rectus femoris, you have the vastus intermedius, and then you have the vastus lateralis. Now let's look at the posterior aspect of the leg. Again, you want to make sure that you have your medial and lateral correct when you look at this. So here, remember that iliotibial tract, that's going to give you a hint that that's the lateral portion. That's the lateral portion. So there's your iliotibial tract. Here's your gluteus maximus, which we've talked about already. This right here is actually the vastus lateralis from the quadricep group. Now we go into the hamstrings. The hamstrings are actually made of three muscles. The one that is most lateral is the biceps femoris. You see this tendon come down. You can actually feel that behind your knee. So you have the biceps femoris. Then you have the superficial muscle here, which is the semitendinosus, and then deep to that, you have this muscle that shows up in two spots here because it's deep to this muscle. This is the semimembranosus, And then again, you have this medial muscle, the gracilis, that you also saw in the anterior view. So again, on the lateral side here, we have the iliotibial tract, the gluteus maximus. Here we see the vastus lateralis from the quadriceps. Then you have the biceps femoris, which is the most lateral of the hamstring muscles, the semitendinosus, which is superficial, and then you have the semimembranosus, which is deeper, and then here you have the gracilis. I'm going to show you this muscle on the next slide. Here we have the lower leg. Here you have the posterior. They're your toes, so your toes are anterior. We have the posterior lower leg, and here we have the anterior lower leg. You can see the tibia right here. So the most superficial muscle in your calf is called the gastrocnemius. Then we have a deeper muscle called the soleus. It's called that because when you would just see the muscles separated from the body, it would look like a solefish. It would be very flat. Now, that's the soleus. Next, look at what side you're on. Okay, look at what side you're on. You're on the lateral portion of the leg. Remember what bone is lateral in the lower leg. The bone that's lateral in the lower leg is the fibula. So this muscle here is called the fibularis longus. So again, that's why it's important that you get your medial and lateral cleared up in your head. Okay. Attaching that gastrocnemius and the soleus to the heel bone or the calcaneus is the Achilles tendon. It is technically called the calcaneal tendon, but I will accept Achilles tendon. Over here, we're looking at the anterior view of the lower leg, and here you see the front of the tibia. There's your patella. The muscle you have to know in front, and this should make sense because it's anterior and it's right by the tibia, so it's called the tibialis anterior. So one more time through those muscles. We have the gastrocnemius, we have the soleus, we have the fibularis longus on the lateral portion, we have the calcaneal tendon, and over here we have the tibialis anterior. I'm going to go back to the initial slide, go through them one more time with not as much explanation. A, rectus abdominis. B, external obliques. A, iliopsoas. Over here we have the gluteus maximus. We have the iliotibial tract or iliotibial band. Up here by the iliac crest we have the gluteus medius. Here, most medial, we have the gracilis. Here we have the adductor longus, the sartorius, which runs lateral to medial. Then we have the vastus medialis, the rectus femoris. Deep to that rectus femoris is the vastus intermedius, and here is the vastus lateralis. Looking at the posterior leg, we have the iliotibial tract on the lateral side. You see the vastus lateralis from the quadriceps group. Up here you have the gluteus maximus. The three hamstring muscles. This is the biceps femoris. This is the semitendinosus, the superficial muscle, and then the deep muscle of the hamstring is the semimembranosus. Most medial in the leg is the gracilis. Looking at the lower leg, posterior, we have the gastrocnemius, the soleus, which is the deep muscle. On the lateral side of the lower leg, you have the fibularis longus, and then the Achilles tendon, which attaches the soleus and gastrocnemius to the calcaneus. In the front of the lower leg, we have the tibialis anterior. I'm going to go through these quickly. A. Rectus abdominis. External obliques. Iliopsoas muscle. Gluteus maximus. Gluteus medius. Iliotibial tract. Gracilis. Adductor longus. Sartorius. Vastus medialis. Rectus femoris. Below it, deep to it, is the vastus intermedius. Vastus lateralis. Iliotibial tract. Gluteus maximus. Vastus lateralis from the quadriceps. Biceps femoris. Semitendinosus. Semimembranosus. Gracilis. Gastrocnemius. Soleus. These two muscles attach to the calcaneal tendon. Lateral. Fibularis longus. In front, anterior, you have the tibialis anterior. This time through, I'm going to say it, you're going to say it. Rectus abdominis. External obliques. Iliopsoas. Gluteus maximus. Gluteus medius. Iliotibial tract. Gracilis. Adductor longus. Sartorius. Vastus medialis. Rectus femoris. Underneath, vastus intermedius. Vastus lateralis. Vastus lateralis. Biceps femoris. Semitendinosus. Semimembranosus. Gracilis. Gastrocnemius. Soleus. Calcaneal tendon or Achilles tendon. Fibularis longus. Tibialis anterior. Make sure you review this, make sure you take the practice test, and also make sure you can find these muscles on other models like the little naked guy I showed you and the poster that's in the front of the room.